Okay, everybody, welcome to the Media Buyer webinar. It is, and I have people commenting already. It is Monday, July 31st. This is your weekly download on all the data, trends, performance marketing information that you need to know going into this week. We're going to look at last week. If you're new here, we're going to look at last week. We're going to look at some metrics. We're going to look at some performance. And then we're going to kick things over and have a nice little fireside chat with our guest, Carly London. She's an amazing media buyer, with more than a decade of experience, like growing brands successfully. Carly, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'm going to get into it here. So, long story short, now we are in the real, finally, no more Prime Day, no more 4th of July, dog days of summer here, right? This is the time, I can see that all of you are taking notes on this. This is a time that we are going to be pushing our top of funnel awareness or in preparation for Q4, in preparation for Black Friday. This is cram time. If you haven't already been doing that work at the beginning of this year, the work you do now on informing your customers, preparing them with offers, preparing them to understand your brand, and having you top of mind when they do start to begin thinking about discounted purchases or holiday purchases or whatever, the work you do now is going to pay off later. And obviously you can see that people are picking up on that because CPMs are up across the board this week, even though there's nothing going on, right? It's really interesting to see those numbers jump up. It's not huge on Meta, but performance is red across the board on auction metrics on Meta because people do know, this is where it's converting. This is where I'm going to be running my campaigns real heavy at the start of November. We need to seed that place, right? If I have to guess, people are doing a lot of work expanding the audiences they're reaching into. They're playing with new ad formats. They're running experiments at this time that are going to turn into the stuff that they scale towards, the beginning of Q4 and all through the holiday season. So these might be some of the cheapest CPMs you'll see for a while. But if you're only measuring on CPMs, you're either a huge brand with a ton of budget or you're prioritizing incorrectly. So you should be focused on performance at this time, running your ad creatives, getting your tests working. That's what we're really looking at, right? TikTok had a great week for conversion metrics. This is funny because I feel like this kind of vacillates all over the place depending on what's going on, but they did just launch a bunch of things. They're pushing their distribution network and all their different types of ads. They're running now text posts on TikTok. So it wouldn't surprise me to know that the people at TikTok understand that Meta is one of our highest converting channels and TikTok is trying to get there, right? Those of you who've been advertising on TikTok for a while, you know that the TikTok to Amazon to purchase or TikTok Google to Amazon to purchase pipeline is a really common one. And TikTok's trying to shorten that. They're trying to shorten that length of time and really have some of their conversion data in-house and just provide better services to us as marketers. So keep an eye on this TikTok conversion metrics and keep an eye on your own. Looking at budget splits, not really a huge shift. Once again, another week goes by where the top two in this list, Meta and Google or Meta Google funnel, gets more budget. That's not a surprise. I think we're going to continue to see that. And shopping continues to grow as well. We've not gotten over 13% of the budget split in Google category there yet, but keep an eye on it. We might get there. Now, this is the really interesting thing for me. Green arrows all across the board for all of our different industries. You can see that this is not really a consistent raise across everyone. It's pretty inconsistent depending on what vertical you have, but this is a regression back to the mean after the initial post discount slump that we saw after Prime Day, right? So you can see things in here that are kind of growing on their own as summer really kicks into gear. Baby's growing, 6% on average, but certain things you can see really have dropped off and they're recovering heavily, right? So electronics, food and bev, health and wellness. This does not mean that they're having the greatest week of their entire lives, but it does mean that week over week, we're seeing some improvement over what happened post Prime Day. Certain industries didn't really see the same amount of lift. Apparel and fashion not really moving very much. Pets is doing well in terms of getting new customers, but the revenue's kind of flat. A lot of normalization going on, and I will find it really interesting to take your brand and compare it to these numbers and be like, all right, is this weird roller coaster that we're seeing normal for us, right? Is this what we're expecting? Is this what we're looking to see? Because over the next couple of weeks, this is going to be a great time for you to test creative, get prepped for Q4, get all your ad campaigns shot, and generally just prepare to hopefully have a great Q4, profitable Q4. And wrap for the end of the year. And I know a lot of people in our industry like to take vacations during this time too. So Great time of year to be thinking about the future while experimenting in the present, which takes me to our next segment. Carly, thank you so much for being here. Carly's been on so many of our webinars. I think you were actually the first guest in the Media Buyer webinar, weeks and weeks. Oh my gosh, like almost 30 issues ago. Thank you so much for coming back. We're bringing Carly on today to just chat a little bit about what's going on in the world of performance marketing, what she's seeing now that she's spun out her own agency, which is really cool. I'd love to talk about that. And generally just welcome you back to the show and get some tips and tricks from you. So Carly, thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I forgot about that. I think it was like first episode months and months ago. So excited to be back here.
Carly, tell us a little bit about you. For the people who don't know you or didn't see you at our Founders Summit or our DTCX Media Buyers Summit, tell us a little bit about you, about the brands you work with, and a little bit about your new agency.
Great. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I think it was about 13 years. I was kind of doing the math, 13 years of experience in the growth marketing space. Kind of stumbled into it right out of college, and like it was my passion. So got really lucky that been able to kind of see like back in the day when it was bidding on CPC on Meta. Remember like kind of that AI and like machine learning. I guess AI is probably the wrong word. Machine learning just came out, and I was everyone was super skeptical. Like, I don't know about this. Now looking back, it's kind of funny, like to look back at, when right-hand rail was like all the rage. So kind of started in the growth space really on Meta, kind of back in the day, worked across a variety of brands, a lot in the online dating space. So Match, Tinder, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, Christian Mingle, JDate, all the dating sites. And then was at Dollar Shave Club as director of digital there for a while. And then kind of started doing a little bit of consulting while I was there, and Lively was my first client. Bralettes, swimwear, kind of e-commerce company, and ended up moving there full time. And then kind of while I was continuing a bit on the consulting, and just as about a month ago, actually, I left Lively and now I'm doing consulting full time. So really excited to continue to grow with existing clients and new clients as well, from anything from media buying, head of growth, kind of anything they need in the growth space.
So, I mean, you've really seen it all, and I'm glad that we can bring you on here and give you a plug as like, hey, hire Carly. She really knows what she's talking about.
I appreciate it. No, definitely not a sales tactic, but if you want to, you can email me at carly@sometimescurly.com.
I would love to talk about what you see, because you're working with tons of brands and you've worked with tons of different brands like across the spectrum of our industry. So, what do you see right now that's working in terms of ads, placements, formats, hooks, funnels? Like, what's working right now and what has you really excited?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just like continuing to try new things. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but I don't think there's like, from what I've seen, one trick or one thing that do this and it works. It really is. And I see this different based on the category, the AOV, the customer type. I think one example is for one client, I'm seeing really good results on ASC for all their products combined. And they have like very different sorts of products, and they seem to be working well in one ASC with checkout turned on for Meta. But then, I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then I tried it for another brand, and that doesn't work. And I don't know if it's just maybe the products are too differentiated in one versus another, but I think it's like trying it, seeing if it works. It might work, it might not, but I think you can't take one rule and apply it against every brand. It's kind of like try it and see how it works. But I do think creative, and I know it's like everyone's saying this, just pumping out creative. Don't sacrifice the quality, like making sure the hooks are really good, very like quick cuts, UGC focused. But yeah, just pumping out the creative. And again, if a couple work out of a lot, like for me, that's good. Not everything needs to hit. It's just like find a few winners and then just push a ton of scale.
I love the creative piece, because I want to like dial in on that, because so often, like having been ahead of growth and bounced around, I find that like making creative at scale is like a real challenge for any brand. Whether it's like an operational challenge, this is like, I don't even know how to do that. Where do we begin? We don't have anybody on our team that could like pick up a phone and go and shoot some video, or they're like, oh, we like, hired this agency to make creative for us, but none of it worked. Or, oh, we have all these videos that our social team makes. Like, can we just repurpose those into ads? Like, when you talk about like UGC and creative and stuff, what's your favorite way to get that content and make some sort of workplace where you can actually pump out that UGC, like you said?
Yeah, it is a huge lift. And this is like, I wish I had a, like, this is the ideal solve. I think, a combination of based on your scale. I think if you are spending a lot, some clients that spend millions a month on Meta, using a really good third party agency, I think is helpful. It's just like diversifying ideas, because your team only has certain, it's like ideas and then execution are kind of both,
Mhm.
I'd say, critical sometimes. And it's usually two different people. So you kind of need like the analytical, the person that's like coming up with the concepts, coming up with the hooks, looking at the data, what's working, and then you have the hands-on editors kind of making those changes. There are sometimes that's the same person, I'd say rare. So having like the dedicated person that's like helping do the analysis, and then the 1 or 3 or however many editors like churning out those edits. But yeah, I think a combination of using some outside parties. I know it's, these people are amazing at creatives externally. They can look across all different accounts and see what's working. So I do think if you are at scale, using those agencies is nice. It's not cheap. Like when you see the invoice, it's kind of painful, but it's worth
Yeah.
it. If I'm an analytical, you do the math. If they're increasing your OS by X and you're paying them less than that, it's worth it. So I think trying different agencies, but then as well as having an internal, like a process. So using like a Trello or a ClickUp or something where you like have a very clean delivery and like number of assets, combination of static and video, and having someone that is that like concept person, maybe someone that actually talks to the talent, and then someone that edits, and having a defined job for each. I think having one person do all of it, depending on your scale, could be kind of a lot and a different skill set for each.
I also love getting like the social teams involved, because so often like the organic social side, like in many companies, if you have, let's say, a really well established organic social presence and that's what they're doing, a lot of them maybe haven't necessarily touched performance marketing before, or like come over and like, yeah, we repurposed some stuff but it didn't really work. But so often like the organic social teams, they know what works, they know what their organic audience like wants to watch. And it always like blows my mind when I'm like, well, have you ever spoken to your organic lead and like asked them like what sort of trends do you see are absolutely hitting right now that we could jump on? And they might be like, oh wait, I have this content, just take it and run with it, right? I always love like getting organic social in the mix too.
Yeah, I agree. No, and it is like sometimes totally different. Like there are some that you look at and it's pretty obvious, like this is not gonna work for paid. But I agree with you. Like for some clients, what we do is like we'll have like our weekly call, and we do have that organic social person join the call. Maybe not every time, but maybe every other week or something, to just chime in and share, or a Slack channel, like, hey, just drop in if you have like posts go viral. I hate that word, but going viral on organic, like just drop the link in, and like let's see if we have rights, and like let's use that for content. Because I agree, it's like you have the heaviest lift is to get the content. If you have content that's working on organic, like use it, sometimes tweak it, like maybe you will speed up the cuts and add like a few more CTAs throughout or something like that. But I agree, it's like don't double do the work. If you have someone making amazing content, use it for both paid and organic. And it goes both ways as well. If you have an agency that is like a flat fee, use that paid content on organic as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like you just get the most out of your content, right? Um, let's shift gears and talk about like strategy. Like I was mentioning earlier, we're like at the end of July. It's like a weird time every year, like for our industry. What's on the top of your mind strategically right now with your clients? Like, what are you thinking about? What's the next big push or the next big campaign? Like, what are you thinking about right now?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it kind of like right as you're going through the data. I think like it sounds crazy that like talking about holiday and cyber and Q4 sounds insane, but I do think it's testing right now, because I do not like testing anywhere near any time frames like cyber. It just is like the data you're going to get doesn't make sense. So I say like just do not be testing anywhere in Q4. The data's just not going to be reliable. So I think it's kind of getting all those tests in now. So for one brand, we're actually like in the midst of running a pretty interesting test. We don't have the results yet, but it's more of like an awareness sort of test. This is like a larger client, so testing a campaign. It's a clean test, testing an ASC campaign and then a reach campaign compared to just an ASC by itself. So pretty interesting. I usually am skeptical on these like reach only or traffic sort of campaigns, but I think it is like taking that boundary and pushing the boundaries of it and saying like, let's try it. If it doesn't work, it is what it is. Also, again, ask, I know Meta's going to hate this, like ask your rep for money for these tests. Like, again, based on the size of your client, like based on the size of your brand, like they have funds for these sometimes. So it de-risks it a little bit. If it doesn't perform, at least it's counterbalanced. So I think just testing things that are kind of like, this is super interesting. This is the time to do it because you don't want to test it anywhere close to Q4.
I love that, like, you're committed to testing, and that's, I mean, I consistently on this show will be like, hey everybody watching this right now, like I consistently see trends across the most successful people who are using Northbeam. And one of those trends that you're talking about right now is running real accurate ad experiments and tests. And I know it's like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer, but like so many brands I know don't actually run a creative test in a way that's like accurate, or they're not having these conversations where they're like, well, is that data trustworthy, right? Or is this test actually something that's going to push the line and like get something different for us, right? Is this test big enough to drive the incremental lift we want, or is it just us nitpicking like tiny little things that aren't really going to move the lever, right? So I'd love to hear more about like when you're talking to clients and you're talking about we're going to run real experiments, like what that entails and kind of how you like to frame, hey, we're going to run these experiments, we're going to find winners. Like, how do you explain that to your clients who are maybe haven't run as clean of tests or as focused of tests as you've run before?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I love non-clean tests. Like, I think you can't, sometimes it's like, let's just make creatives, launch them. And I'd say like probably 90% of the time, that's what we're doing. I think, because there is like a minimum spend to get results. I think for me, what I hate is running a clean test without enough data. Like you're not spending enough to get valuable data. It's kind of like, oh, I have 5 orders on this and 7 orders on this. Like that's not helpful information. So I think it is kind of going into it. And again, if you're a larger spending account, working with your rep to kind of help run those numbers of like, what's the holdout size? How much money do we need to spend? They'll tell you this is probably what you need to spend to get that result. So I only do that, I'd say, for important things like this awareness kind of test, which is like, this is a big strategy change. Let's see if it works. Same with landing pages. I really try to like do a clean test on landing pages because that's a big change. Like, are you going to send all your traffic to page A or page B? You got to test that cleanly. I'd say for creatives, I don't. It's really like, let's just make a bunch of creatives, launch them. Like if it works, let's scale. If it doesn't, let's iterate or do something else. But I think, yeah, I feel like you have to, because for me, that's a big decision on what landing page you're sending to. I wouldn't want to do that without feeling like confident that you have enough data. There's really been no pushback from clients. I think, in terms of if you like really outline it and work with people who understand, I haven't seen pushback in terms of like, whoa, this seems like too much, especially because it's like, we're doing the work on our end. Like we'll set it up for you. We just need like a thumbs up or thumbs down. And it is discussing, priorities as well. If they're like, we're closing this product, we're not going to sell this product anymore. Okay, let's not test that landing page. But usually it's just making sure you're aligned with what their business goals are. And then besides that, really, it's been very open to running these tests.
I mean, that's I'm so glad to hear that people are more open to these tests. They understand this framework, right? Because like as an agency founder, that's like, and someone coming in as a consultant, that's like a hard thing to do and be like, we're going to try, it might stick, it might not, you know what I mean? Which takes me to my next point. There's a lot of agency people in this call, people who are running their own agency, or they're freelancers, or they're, people that are working with multiple clients and whatever sort of way that might be. We have a ton of people, fractional people and all of this. What kind of advice do you have for them, being someone who's like working for your own, going out and getting clients? Like, what's your biggest piece of advice for people who maybe want to go freelance or want to start their own agency?
Yeah, I think for me, it really is kind of like word of mouth and making sure like I want to go above and beyond for every client in terms of like, and this is probably not, I'm still trying to find that balance of like scope, going over scope. So I do have that problem sometimes where it's like, this is not in scope, but I have trouble saying no. So it's that balance, I think, where you don't want to like, oh, like go crazy and be doing stuff that's out of scope, but you do want to be like part of their team. I think it really makes you like last longer. They really like keep you a longer time if they're like, wow, you're really going above and beyond. Like maybe we'll do a custom report for them without asking, like, hey, we thought this would be useful based on like something you said, even though it's like we're scoped to run search ads, but we're like, hey, we made you a Google Data Studio. It's like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, this is great. So I do think it is like going above and beyond, not just like logging in, media buying, logging out. It's kind of like that going a little bit above. It seems like a lot of work, but again, it's more work to like churn through clients. It's better to keep clients for like 2, 3, 4 years and do an amazing job versus just like trying to keep finding new clients.
Speaking of clients, we're coming up on time here. What's the best way to get a hold of you? You mentioned at the top your email, right?
Yeah, if you do want to reach out, and that's another thing. I don't have a website or anything like that. I like to keep it very, very casual. But if you do want to, if you're looking for an agency, you can email me at Carly, CARLY, at sometimescurly.com. And the name came from the hair, sometimes it's curly, sometimes it's straight. So sometimescurly.com.
We got a kind of a challenging question here from Mo that I might be able to answer. Like the value delivery of a traffic agency shifting. This is a really hard question, Mo, because like measuring the value of an agency or the value of a freelancer or somebody that you have on your team is something that is both tangible in what you pay to bring them on and the money invested in their creative test, but it's also intangible in the sense of there's many things that people can bring in terms of awareness or in terms of what they contribute to the team, like what Carly was just talking about, like going above and beyond, that are really difficult to attach to a number. So it's what we are as marketers is we're both qualitative and quantitative these days, like if you're doing any sort of performance marketing. So understanding like, oh, this agency is running traffic campaigns for me is something that I think every brand has to do personally. You have to kind of measure that and be like, okay, what are all of the values that they are bringing, right? Rather than being like, oh, maybe I can just drop them and hire like somebody to make a bunch of AI creative for me. That's a really challenging question and really something that you have to measure that I don't think every individual person can have one cookie cutter answer to. Any other questions? Last final 5 minutes here, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, Carly, thank you so much for coming on. We always appreciate you and your insight on stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you again. Always fun to be here. And I think I'll see you in a few weeks for another one, hopefully. So looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, you're coming to our, what a perfect time
Yeah.
for a shameless plug. We're waiting on questions here.
Yeah.
You're in our next media buyer summit, right?
Yeah, I think the summit coming up. I forgot if it's a couple months away.
Those of you who missed or want to go back and watch some of the sessions from our previous media buyer summit, which was huge. I mean, Autumn's going to have to correct me on the numbers here, but like, there were thousands of people there, tons of people watched. All those videos are on our YouTube. If they're not on our YouTube yet, they're scheduled to go live. I just didn't want us to get screw up the algorithm and get weirdly banned or whatever, but I constantly am sharing links and wraps of those videos in our newsletter every week. So if there's a session you really liked, including one of Carly's, go back and watch that. And we have another one coming up. We'll be sharing promotional links and materials once we get more of our run of show nailed down. I think we have some really cool people coming this time. It's happening on September 7th. You can register right there in the link in our bio. And we'll keep bringing on new guests and telling you about who's going to be there and really just learning from the last one, which I think so many people were so excited over, that I'm happy to do it again, especially at a time where we're going to be like right on the cusp of like right after September 7th. It's like, okay, do we turn on the Q4 campaigns now? Do we turn on the Black Friday?
Cyber is the craziest. It's like October 1st, like turn on the cyber campaign. So
yeah. So that'll be a perfect time. And oh, Carly, you're a keynote for that. Amazing.
Oh, great. Looking forward to
it. Once again, Carly, thank you so much for joining. Anybody, if you have any questions, send her an email, tweet at us. We're here and we'll be here once again next Monday.
Amazing. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.